And I remember going to a musical in London called Song and Dance, an Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, and the band were on stage. It was quite a big band. And the piano player was in the middle, and I thought, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do.
Really?
Yeah. And so I was about 15, and it wasn't necessarily playing, but to be a part of that. Yeah. And so I can happily say that that's what I've done.
Good morning, Jon.
Good morning.
It's so great to meet you here on Zoom.
Yeah, welcome to my little home in Hamburg.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're based in Hamburg.
Yeah.
But you're originally from England.
That's right, yeah. But I've been living in Hamburg actually since 1991.
Oh.
A long time. And the story is that I intended to be here for a week. I just came to visit someone. And then at the time, there was the musical Phantom of the Opera in Hamburg, and musicals were a new thing at that time, and they were looking for a keyboard player for a couple of months. And so I was kind of intending to do that in London anyway, but in Hamburg they have such a fantastic theatre that I thought, okay, I can do that. And then, so I played that show for a little while, and then there was a job at the musical Cats. And so they're looking for a conductor, a musical director. And so I ended up doing that job. And so I signed a contract for a year, and I thought, okay, I can do a year. And then it went on, and I actually did 4 years there. And then I got to know other people. And then Hamburg is such a great place for music, and Germany generally for what I do. And so I guess I'm staying.
And you're now part of the furniture.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that wasn't intended, actually. It really wasn't. But it's just the way things go, you know. And
yeah, but
so,
isn't it amazing how you sometimes end up doing something that you, in your wildest dreams, never would have thought?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, no, that's the story of my life, really. I mean, it is. Yeah. And so I really can't complain, and now have my family here, and yeah, all's good.
Amazing.
So yeah, and I work totally freelance as a musician, basically involved in lots of different projects, and composing, arranging, also playing, musical direction. That's all part of what I do. No, but I want to say that I think it's fantastic what you are doing too. I mean, you reach out and take an interest in so many people. I think it's great, you know.
I'm so glad you enjoyed that. Yeah. It's interesting to hear people's stories, and it's fascinating to discover what art brings, you know, because I mean, just the other day I spoke to somebody who's doing set design. Well, she calls it production design, but you know, it's these things that we never know about because we don't see the people. So you know, there you are in the theater, but there's so much going on behind the scenes that you never realize it. Yeah. Yeah,
that's right.
Of course, everybody's story, and like you as well, you know, it's really inspirational to hear, and I think for other artists and not even artists, but for people to hear that there's a path, you know, and that you have to, not an instant. Things don't happen in an instant.
That's absolutely correct. And I think that probably everyone you've spoken to in the theatre or, you know, artist world has a similar kind of story. You know, I mean, I definitely began when I was 11, and then I was hooked on music. You know, that was my thing.
But where did you grow up?
In England. Actually, we moved around a bit. You come from South Africa. I spent also a couple of years in South Africa.
Really?
As a child. Yeah, we lived in just outside Johannesburg in a suburb called Parkview.
Oh yeah.
But that was
a lovely suburb.
Because my dad was working there. But I was most of my growing up time in or close to Birmingham, the middle of England. And so my story with music, I started piano lessons when I was about 6 or 7. And then when I went up to the high school, the grammar, the high school, then I wanted to start with guitar. And then so my dad said, well, you can either have guitar lessons or piano lessons. And so I switched to guitar, and then I got hooked, and I had a friend there, and we had a band. We just spent all our time making music. I had we had a little studio together, and we composed loads and loads of songs. And that was absolutely my world from the moment on, and it really hasn't changed much since then.
And of course, a guitar is lovely because you can carry it around. Piano is more static, so I can imagine that it's to collaborate with other musicians. It's easier when you have an instrument that you can carry around.
Yeah. I mean, there's keyboards too now. So that's not a problem. But that was my instrument, and so of course the biggest influence was the Beatles at that time.
Oh, really?
Talking about some 72, and I was just absolutely fascinated with the sound and the atmosphere that they created. And I remember listening really intensely to their music. And then as time, my family, my mum and dad had a big record collection. They were not professional musicians, but I would say avid music listeners. And so my dad had a big record collection, and I was always listening to a whole array of music from Beethoven and jazz. I remember he had a compilation jazz CD, and I was just really listening into the music. And that was when I was probably about 13, 14. And then it was, for me, obvious that I wanted to be a professional musician.
Really? At that young age?
Yeah, when I was about 15, that was it for me.
Really?
And I had a little phase with architecture, but my maths wasn't good enough anyway. But music was definitely the thing. And
but
so,
did your parents support that? Because it's sometimes artists would say to me, or musicians would say, well, my parents wasn't sure that this is going to be the career.
That's absolutely the case. I mean, none of my family, I mean, my dad worked in a bank, it's all very secure and whatever. And so, and my brother as well went into a very, he went into the hotel business, had a good career. But it was just, I was on a different path. That's all I can say. I was on a different thing. And so it was suggested that I should leave school early and do what's in England called A-levels, like Abitur, the end of school, in a dedicated music school. So you can concentrate on music, but do your A-levels and then go into university or whatever. And so I did that, and I went to the Leeds College of Music, which offered the first jazz course in Great Britain at that time. Really? And so when I went there, and I saw all the students and everyone, I thought, this is my world, this is it. Really? And so I was then, 17? And so I did the course there, and then I went to the Birmingham, what's now the Royal Birmingham Conservatoire. It was in a smaller building then, but I had a very, very good piano teacher, and so.
So you mainly studied jazz then by that time, or also classical?
Classical. Yeah, I mean, jazz was there, but it was mostly classical. But I got involved with all types of music, and I've always been involved in all types of music. It's always whatever's interested me, whether it's pop, rock, whatever music has something interesting for me to listen to, and it says something, that it speaks to me, then that's the thing. So I've got quite a wide array of music that I've played and also enjoy listening to, So,
but that's so interesting because I spoke to a jazz harpist. And he was saying something that I never thought about, but he said that because he plays jazz and from a young age, he used to improvise a lot. And improvisation, it comes with jazz, of course, because it's you do that. But many people who do just classical music or just focus on classical music, they find it difficult to improvise.
Yeah, no,
but you had a wider range of
because I started like that, it's Yeah, you definitely get blocked if you're just learning music classically without any thought of improvising, of going your own way. Then you won't get into the frame of mind of that. It is quite difficult, and then after a while, you're just not used to it, basically. But everyone actually has that. But the way I started, I had normal classical piano lessons at the beginning, but then with the guitar, I was just finding the shapes of the guitar, and like the Beatles and Paul McCartney had no lessons whatsoever. It's just the shape of the chord, and then you just find your way around. You can't actually explain it theoretically, but it's just right. But then you find, as you go into music, that all music is connected, and this thing of improvisation was, of course, a big thing with Bach. In the 17th century, he always improvised, and church musicians, church organists, they're expected to improvise.
Really?
And that's standard all over the world. The improvisation for them is a normal thing, as part of their work, and that goes back, way before jazz. But with classical music, yeah, you're right. It's improvisation in that sense. It's a different language, and you have to learn to improvise too. There's in jazz is like actually rocket science. You can go on forever. There's so many permutations and things, and it's never ending. But that's what fascinated me in the first place, with all these nice chords. I don't know if you can hear that, but
yeah.
Why these chords sound like they do. And so that was, from the beginning, a source of absolute fascination for me.
But now, because of this interest in all the different genres, did you also have an interest in different instruments then, and different sounds?
No, for me it was piano. Because I switched back to piano, I think when I was 14, because I actually wanted a keyboard player for my band, and I couldn't find anyone.
Okay.
And so I learned it myself, first of all. But I remember my younger sister having piano lessons, and so I started lessons with this teacher, and then I just practiced like crazy. I got really hooked, and then I auditioned for this music college and got into it, and then had a really good piano teacher, and subsequently very, very good teachers. But yeah, that was it for me. But the piano is, you've got the whole orchestra at your fingertips. And I was always, for me, harmony was a big thing. But I would say that everyone, according to their personality, probably is attracted to a certain instrument. All the, the brass players I know are a certain type, and so the trombone players, the trombone becomes a part of their body in the end. It's just absolutely, or a flute player or whatever, string player. But no, for me it was harmony. That was the main thing for me, and so the piano was the obvious thing.
So did you have to do all the exams, the piano exams, to get into the college? Oh, you did?
Yeah, okay. You had to get in England your grade 8 to qualify for an audition, actually.
Really?
And then then you have your audition and interview, and then they like you or they don't like you.
Oh, okay. It's like in the ballet world as well.
Yeah.
You have to. It's just,
or at least they think you have potential,
Yeah.
And so I was recommended Birmingham because there was a very good piano teacher there called Frank Wibaut, who was a world-class piano player, and he was recommended from the teacher I had beforehand, and so I was lucky to get him. He took me as one of his students, and so that was great. And so he was also an inspiration for playing, and the phenomenon that when you see someone that good, somehow you can imitate him, but only for a short time. You can play the way he does, and then you have to practice, but then you go back to your own level or whatever it is. But he was an extremely good teacher, and also good.
Do you think the fact that you as a young child had this freedom of sort of exploring the music yourself, before you started doing all these exams and the formal training, that gave you also more courage to sort of just pursue things and not to know, wait, maybe I'm not good enough for this.
No, absolutely, yeah. And for me, Leeds was very good because there were a lot of people like that,
Really?
And especially on the jazz course itself. I was on a so-called foundation course where I was like doing my end of school exams and concentrating on music. But there was a lot of freedom, and also stylistically, it wasn't glued to classic, which at that time the music academies and colleges were all really classically orientated. And actually in Birmingham, where I was, that was very orientated towards classic. And I was probably the only one at the time, one of the few who had any experience with jazz or other types of music. And so I was a bit kind of horrified when I went in but it was, definitely, I would say
more
it gives
daring.
you more daring and more actual just knowledge, because you know how much more music is out there, and so for how I developed, I also loved theatre, and my mum and dad went often to the theatre, and so I went with them. And I remember going to a musical in London called Song and Dance, Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, and the band were on stage. It was quite a big band, and the piano player was in the middle. And I thought, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do.
Really?
And so I was about 15, and it wasn't necessarily playing, but to be a part of that. Yeah. And so I can happily say that that's what I've done.
Yeah, I see you've been so involved in many musical theatre.
Yeah.
Productions. So but you said you ended up in Hamburg by playing the keyboard.
Yeah, it was basically I came over to visit someone, to cut a long story short. And I intended to stay, I think, a week. But I got to know the people that were in Phantom of the Opera, and at that time it was all new here, so pretty much everyone came from English-speaking countries, not America, England, whatever, because there was no one here. They wanted to introduce the whole musical thing. It was a bit of an experiment at the time, to Germany. And so I just, it was just by chance doing that. And so I wanted to do the show in London, but in Hamburg, I kind of fell in love with Hamburg anyway. I just liked it. And it was kind of, it was time for a life change anyway. And so it was just right. And then by chance, someone said that Cats, which was also new there, were looking for a conductor. So I auditioned for that and got that job.
But now, wait a minute. Were you trained a conductor?
Yeah, at Birmingham, that was part of the course. Yeah, I was the first study piano player, and it was composition and conducting. But I have to say that also conducting, you learn by doing. I mean, you can learn about it, but actually, until you're there in front of an orchestra and everything, then you've got everything to learn the first time. So I had experience in England as a musical director before I came. But it was still a challenge, because Cats was such a exact show with, it was basically a big dancing show, and so you had to get everything right in the first time. Had the tempos right and the cues and the breathing and everything. And so that was a challenge, but it was a very, very good one.
Because with the different conductors that I've spoken to, I've also realized that there's, for opera, it's almost a little bit more specialized.
It is
different, So, and for dancing is also, for ballet, it's something different. So, musical theatre, of course, it's also different than conducting.
It brings everything together, because most of the dancers in Cats were ballet dancers, and definitely the choreographer came from a very classical background, and so and Gillian Lynn was the choreographer, so all very classically orientated, and so you have to understand that. You have to understand what they need. And then you also had to understand what the singers need. And with a musical like Cats, it's all different styles. So you've got opera, you've got rock, you've got kind of like jazzy sort of, musical thing. And then you need to know what the band needs, what the orchestra needs.
Yeah.
And so all these elements you have to get right.
Wow.
Oh, no pressure.
I was just thinking, how do you get into that alive? Okay, get out of it alive.
I would say gradually. Yeah, but they were all very supportive, and it was all a new thing anyway. And so but it went fine, and then I ended up doing that show for 4 years full time.
Wow.
Yeah,
and then you have to do it in German as well.
Yeah, I had to learn the language too. Yeah, I didn't have any German when I came over, but now I can.
Really? Okay.
And so I teach in German and everything.
Okay.
So, but it was just a fantastic thing because, as I said, people came from all over the world, because they had to audition people from, literally from New Zealand to America to South America to all over Europe to bring people in to do the show, because at the time there were really not enough people in Germany to do that. And so you had a fantastic pool of, I would say, like-minded people, coming to do this show, and great friendships ensured, which I still have.
And now the musical theatre is because we have it here in Vienna. We had Cats as well, and it's now. I've also spoken to, and I can't remember the creative director's name now, but I've also spoken to him, and he was talking about this new how they started out and doing these musicals in German-speaking countries. So you were there in the beginning. You were there when it all started. How amazing!
Yeah, not right at the very beginning. I think Cats was 88. I was here in 91. But it was the beginning. But that time it was very special. So many good people and so many chances came out of it. Like for instance, with the band itself, it was 17 in the band, but every principal had so-called subs, to play when they couldn't play. And so there's probably a pool of, I don't know, at least 80 or so. And they came from the orchestras and the big bands. And so I got to know a lot of people. And then after that, I got into production work and new shows, but basically all through connections in this time in Cats.
Wow!
Yeah, so
the experience then built to get to the next, to producing.
Yeah, kind of. It's just really good sort of networking, I'd say, and that's something that you just can't plan. It's just how it developed. So and then I ended up doing shows and musicals all over, in Maui and Paris and all over the place. Yeah.
And you compose as well.
Yeah, I've always composed. Yes. And as I said, from the beginning, when I was 11, I composed loads of songs. I mean, I'd say hundreds.
Really?
With a friend of mine who was equally as obsessed with music, and so spent most weekends on recording sessions. And we had a little tape deck and did all this stuff. And so and so it started then. And then actually I was surprised when we had to clean up my mum's house that I found lots of music I'd written that I'd forgotten about when I was 14, 15 for orchestra and stuff. I can't really remember doing that. But I do remember being really interested in how the sound was created, and so writing, transcribing scores, how things would sound. And then at music school, I had a chance, to study and have my music played, and then I've always done that. And then the first job I had after leaving music school was in the Birmingham Repertory Theatre as a musical director for a Christmas show. And that came about through me playing piano for the college opera. And the guy that directed the opera was also the director of the Repertory Theatre. And so he asked me if I'd like to do the show there. So again,
Wow.
I didn't audition for it or anything.
Yeah,
it just came my way.
Came your way.
And then I really loved the atmosphere of theatre. The people, the actors, and just the whole buzz of it. I thought, this is great, and so I was musical director. I didn't write the music, I arranged the music for that show. And then I was asked to write my first soundtrack, and that was in connection with the Royal Shakespeare Company. It wasn't in Stratford, it was in Birmingham. It was a new play, but with very top quality, renowned actors and actresses. And so there I got my first chance of composing music for theatre, which was mostly electronic, which is something which is also new for me. I didn't learn about electronic music in school because no one knew anything about it, but I had synthesizers then, and keyboards. I was always interested in that. And so that was my first taste of creating atmospheric music and being influenced by the piece and by the people in it and color and everything. And so I've always done that.
But as a child, this is so great that you had that interest. So that's where it started. These and like you say, you wrote. It wasn't that those days when you didn't compose on computer. It was handwritten.
No.
And so you didn't know the sound. You didn't know what it would sound like if it wasn't an orchestra.
I mean, you just hear the sound of the instrument, and so when you study instrumentation and composition at school, then you definitely know about the limitations of the instrument, the ranges and whatever. All that kind of stuff. So I knew all that through college and the basic stuff, but you always learn how to create color with music and texture, whatever.
And now, if you like when you did your first work like that, where you did it for an orchestra or for to have played, what was the feeling when it was first played, when you heard it?
It's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. And I still get a buzz. I'm also one of the great virtues of Germany is it's really the land of orchestras, and there's loads of orchestras, and way more in Great Britain, professional orchestra or professional quality orchestra. So I've got myself into a niche there of arranging music for these big orchestras that need specific songs, pieces arranged for their Besetzung, their lineup of musicians, whether it's 60 or 20 or 5 or whatever, I can do that. But the big ones, what was the question?
It's that hearing it for the first time.
And so that is always the main reward. I mean, I get paid for my work in money, but the actual biggest reward is actually listening to it. It really is. And to see people enjoy performing it, I've done over the past few years big choir or orchestra concerts, and there's so much great energy there, and seeing the people really attacking the instruments and having fun with it, and that's the biggest reward. And always, and any composer would say, any arranger would say that.
Yeah.
That is. Yeah, that's it, and it never goes away.
A young composer once said to me this, that it's great if the audience love your music, but the greatest compliment is really when the musicians who play it enjoy playing. And I never thought of it that way, but I can imagine that's actually the reward. And
it's funny because in that way you can say that making music is quite self-indulgent, because you do it for yourself, and if the audience like it, that's great. But it's true. But also I think of other things now. The audience reaction, that's also great. And there's sometimes, last year I did a tour called ABBAmania. It's all ABBA songs. And it was the complete show, so 24 songs. And so the first, when I was asked to do that, the first thing that always comes into your mind is, can I do all that in the time frame, and so I figured that I could. But with this particular job, there were medleys, songs strung together, and they had to have transitions, and all the transitions really needed to give a lift or some kind of expression, or that what's going to come up, because all the songs are so well known. And so when I pieced these songs together and made a little transition with a key change or whatever, and that all had to be okayed by the musical director and the singers, that all the keys were correct for them. And so I did that. And then on the night when they played that, and you see the reaction that the audience had to that transition, that no one knows. I mean, no one thinks about the arrangement, the little guy sitting at the back listening to the music that he's written out. But that, for me, that was really a fantastic moment, because that's exactly what I wanted. That's what I had envisaged. And so to see that, experience that, it's one of the joys of making music.
Amazing. Yeah. I can imagine that. And also you being so sort of involved in the theater, and that you as a young child, that you said already you wanted to be part of this theater world. Does it make it easier to then compose, because you used to the sounds and you used to what makes good theater?
Yeah, I mean, over a period of time, you really have to go into all sorts of different styles, and to understand different styles, and what it takes to make the sound of the musical language sound right. So if you're doing, I don't know, say a country and western song, it's going to sound totally different to a French chanson, but you're using the same notes, but the language is different. It's just the same with words, and we use the same words, but the language is different. And so, yeah.
But and the audience, do you find the audience different in Germany, say, for instance, as in the UK? Do they react differently to different things?
Yeah, I think now I'd say it's between England and Germany. I'd say they're similar. In America, they go crazy. It's just a different buzz there.
Really?
But definitely the musical audience, they love it. It's become such a big thing over the time I've been here, and it's a massive industry now. There's loads of musicals, big and small, and it's a huge thing. And when I think back, it was just like 2. It's really grown amazingly. But yeah, normally the audiences are very appreciative. They come in, they don't want to go away at the end. In England, really? Once the show is over, that's it. Go home.
Oh, is it?
but here it's a real sort of big night out, and they seem to love it. And definitely for cats. I mean, they run in Hamburg for over 10 years, about 13 years.
Really?
Yeah, and the record actually is a show I've been playing now for 19 years, and that's Lion King.
My goodness.
Yeah, and Lion King has been in Hamburg now for 22 years, and it's always sold out, and that's like a 2,000-seater theatre, and they do 8-9 shows a week. Yeah.
That's incredible. And you would really, only think that of the West End, that the shows run so long.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, it's not at the show. I mean, Lion King definitely has the record. No, I'm wrong. Starlight Express has the record in Bochum. That's about 30 years it's been running. But definitely in Hamburg. And it's become such a tourist thing, have to go to Hamburg, have to go and see Lion King. And so that, other musicals sort of come and go, but Lion King stays. And I've been playing keyboard one as a sub there, as I said, for 19 years. I don't play every show, of course, but but
it's in German. It's all in German.
Yeah. And so, of course, they audition the cast from all over the world, and they come up from South Africa, actually. Yeah, and great singers that come from the the native choir schools and whatever, totally sort of untrained, but they've got this what it takes for Lion King, this style, this African style, and sound of the voices. And so there, the cast will normally stay for a couple of years or so, and then they've had enough, they go back or whatever. But the show itself is being maintained for 19 years.
Incredible. Well, we didn't have Cats that long in Vienna, I remember. And then it changed as well, and it changed frequently, so we don't have them that long here. But the place to go is Hamburg, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, Hamburg is definitely the capital. I mean, there's 4 big musical theatres that have all the the big shows, and then there's lots of small ones all over, and they spring up, and very, very good amateur ones, very engaged, and they offer that, and it's a great thing. And the other thing that was a complete unexpected thing was that they wanted to start making musical schools. That was about 10 years into when I was in Hamburg. And so I was asked if I'd like to teach in the schools, to be a vocal coach, because I had lots of experience, through the musicals with singers, and also through my, college education. And so I did that, and that was something else I found that I really, really enjoyed, working with young people. And so I've had hundreds of students now in the various schools in Hamburg, and also in Essen, the Volksschule, and that's a fantastic thing too, especially when you have people who come in who really want to do it, but they're shy, whatever, or not really developed, and then something suddenly clicks with them, and then they're on their way. It's a great thing, and so I've had students who have done very well for themselves here in the musical world, and also lots of beginners as well. And
but that's also interesting, because sometimes musicians or artists say that the teaching is for them so wonderful, because you actually learn so much from the students yourself.
Yeah, you do. And there's also a thing, I can remember my piano teacher saying that until you start to express yourself verbally, your understanding is only halfway there, because all these things you've taught, you have in your mind, but to actually express them verbally is another bit of energy, and so that's true. And I've had loads of experience with children going up to 60, 70 years old, but if they find that special thing that they want to communicate themselves on stage as a performer, and they realize how much power they have on stage, it's a fantastic thing. And I find it very touching when I do like tryout classes, and people want to come into the schools and have a day just seeing if it's right for them or whatever. And so they're given a session with me on the music, and we can find a song where you have to act through the music in music. And so if you have someone who has just started that and understands what they want, and see the reaction from the other people in the group, you realize the power of what you're giving them.
Really?
It's incredible, yeah. First of all, for the person who may be, say, a bit shy or insecure, whatever, but through that, they get a security, and lots of musicians are maybe not socially adept, quite insular people, because you spend so long by yourself, but that to experience is a wonderful thing in music too. And that's something that I didn't expect. That's just something that came, that I really thought, wow, this is special.
Interesting, yeah. And I think also sometimes you forget. It's like you say, musicians, they study the music and they're so full on getting it right and trying to get it perfect. And then that moment on stage is also daunting, because it's then you have to project it or perform it. And you would think everybody would be able to do it, but it's not a given.
No, it's not. I mean, the advantage, I'd say, of acting, and musicals, is definitely acting through music, is that you're not actually being yourself. You can hide kind of like behind a character, or assume a character, assume something. You can transform yourself. And that's what I found so fascinating right from the very, very beginning with actors, that they can change so much, from what they actually are. And so with an instrument as well, you're involved in your own instrument, whatever it is. And so, that becomes a part of your personality and expression.
Have you always found it easy to perform? Or have you ever had stage fright?
Yeah, totally. I mean,
really?
Yeah. And I would say I've always been orientated towards playing groups, because playing solo, I've never really wanted to do that. And I'm not like a fantastic virtuoso like Yu Vang, whatever. That was never my ambition. But to accompany, to be part of something, and to create music, that was my thing. And so I do a lot of concerts now accompanying. I'm the only piano player on stage, but I do a lot of that also in lots of different styles, blues, classical, all kinds of stuff. And so that's no problem, because I'm a part of.
You're part of something,
yeah. And so that for me, but I've never been wanting to be a solo artist and be in the limelight, actually. That's never been my thing, but always to be part of something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I would say most musicians and performers are like that too. The performers probably want more limelight, but I've never been one like that. I like to give it to someone else.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
But Jon, you're so multi-talented and you do all these things. It's so amazing. And it just seems that things came on your path the way it should have come on your path. So you just did your thing, and the opportunities came.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I had absolute conviction in what I wanted to do. And so if you do that, you just find yourself with the right people and the right environment to do things, and then suddenly comes your way. I've auditioned. I actually auditioned for Cats and a couple of musicals, but normally I don't. They just call because they know what I can do, and if I can do it for them, then they'll call up.
Well, I have a conviction of, and I'm so passionate about what I do, and then I come across lovely people like you. So you see, it works like that.
Yeah.
But Jon, now tell me, what still are the wishes for you for the future?
Wishes. Well, I have a few.
Yeah, go for it.
I still have a couple of things that haven't been fulfilled yet. Like, for instance, I wrote a piano concerto. It was quite a big thing that I've had lying. It's there, but it's never really been the opportunity to have that performed. And so that's definitely something I'd like to have done. But that's a big work, and I presented it to a couple of orchestras. But it's definitely with the big orchestras, you have to look at sort of 2-3 years in advance anyway, because they've got their concert plan going, and it has to be part of something. And so that's something that I'd like to have done. The other little wish I have is that I've done lots of film composition. And one of my biggest wishes still is to do an orchestral recording at Abbey Road Studios in London, which is where sort of John Williams, all the big film music is or has been recorded. And I know people who have done that, but I've never been quite in the loop there. But that's something that's always like a vague wish that I would like to eventually have done, or to have a job that would eventually be the music would be recorded there. That's a little ambition of mine.
I think that wish might I might be able to do something for you for that wish. You have to contact Dominic Ferris for that one.
Dominic Ferris, okay.
Yeah, I'll get you in contact with him because his dad used to work there with the Beatles, and he's got contacts there at the Abbey Road studio. So, and he's a pianist, so maybe your concerto can be done as well.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, but I mean, to be honest, now I'm technically of retiring age, but I'm not. It's not really going to happen.
Retire.
I'm not very successful with that. And
I don't think people should retire. I think there's too much to do.
No, definitely what we do. I mean, it's virtually impossible. And so, but I still have work this year. I've actually got I'm working on it's a show. It's all James Bond songs. That's actually going to come to Vienna in November. Wow. I'm not quite sure which theatre it is. I'm not quite sure.
But, you have to let me know. I would love to go and watch.
Yeah, it's towards the end of. I can look at it later, but I've been working on that, and the music is kind of ready. We start rehearsals the end of this month, and then there's I'm working on another show at the English Theatre in Hamburg. Doing the musical direction for that, and so there's stuff coming up. Yeah,
I've also did an interview with the director there. I just can't remember his name now. The English Theatre in Hamburg.
Paul Glaser.
That's right, Paul Glaser.
Oh, you did it? Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, it'll be with him. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to link the interview I did with him also here, because then it would be nice.
Oh, yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
Connection. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was talking to Paul last night.
Say hi to Paul for me when you see him.
Yeah, I will do. I'll speak to him very soon. Actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jon, I hope to see you in Vienna one day.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. As I said, that'll be in November if that happens. Okay. I'm not absolutely sure if I'll be actually playing then, but I'd love to come to Vienna anyway. I mean, it's been years since I've been there. I mean,
But let me know. I would love to see you play or conduct or anything that you do in the theatre. Yeah. But Jon, have a lovely afternoon, and I hope to see you in Vienna soon.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I was looking forward to it for weeks since we made contact. It's great. Thanks so much, Petra.
Okay, Jon. Have a lovely day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.